Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. We're here talking about the new Z8 mirrorless camera. My name is Mike Corrado, and if you're into wedding photography or portraits, video or stills, you've come to the right place. We've got two amazing guests with us today who actually use the Z8 on assignments, Jidea Lakija and Sharrone Calafiore. Welcome, guys.
Hey.
How you doing today?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm here with you guys, so I can't be doing better. And certainly the Z8 has caught a lot of attention out of the gate on its announcement and some of its great capabilities. We're going to talk about all that today, talk about your experiences for the different shoots that you've had and the work that you've done. I have seen it and I am beyond impressed, and we're going to share that with the world today in a bit of a debut of what you've done. So let's get rolling though by talk a little bit about yourselves. Jidea, will start with you. For anybody out there that may not know who Jidea is, who is Jidea?
I am a wedding and portrait photographer. I also do a lot of street photography as well on the side. I'm also a Nikon ambassador too, I should add. Well,
we love that, and I love that about you. And you were also the most handsome man on the set, right?
Oh yeah, I can't forget that.
Don't forget that. I mean, when you smile at me,
I'm always handsome for you.
We talk about love and moments that you guys are going to share. This is my love and moment with you. I love you. Sharrone, we've recently met. I mean, that's a fact, and I am so blown away by the type of work you do and the teams that you put together. Talk a little bit about yourself out there for people that want to know who Sharrone is.
I am a wedding videographer, and yeah, I've been doing this for probably 13 years now. I'm actually an editor first, so when I first started Fury Films, I was editing and sending out shooters, and slowly kind of just like learned how to shoot.
I think you both have this way of connecting with your subject. I think that's what it's all about, is having this tool that's between you and the subject and connecting with them and showing the love, showing the moments. I know, Jidea, you talk about how you put the people in a place and there's a connection between the location and themselves. And I know, Sharrone, the work you did included a couple that you've worked with that have the love together, and it really shows in the type of work you do. But before we get going, I would love it if you would allow me to show the video that you created so everybody can see what we're about to talk about in your world. And then, Jidea, we'll talk a little bit with you and show your BTS, so behind the scenes, to let everybody see what happens on a Jidea shoot. So let's roll Sharrone's video.
Today, we celebrate a story of love, but not just any story. This is your story.
5 years ago, we stood together.
We made promises and kept them. Life happened and we held them tight. Lucky me, we keep dancing. After all these years, you continue to be the most honest, constant, peaceful and beautiful partner I could ever dreamed of.
Carlos. You make me so incredibly happy. I love our life. I love you, Carlos.
I love you, Annabelle. Thank you for all the love, laughs, and peace you bring to our life.
From 5 years ago, until now and forever,
I still do.
I still do.
Your hearts are each other's dance partner, so may they continue to beat and dance forever.
I look ahead to our future, and I am so excited I get to experience all that life has to offer with you.
Wow. Jade, you want that? No.
Yeah, another one.
Talk a little bit about how you started this and what was your approach to all of it and what did you want out of this?
I feel like when you're creating something emotional, it needs to be sincere and genuine. So they're a real couple. They're a married couple approaching their 5-year anniversary. So I asked them to write their own vows. The idea behind all the colors and the lighting was for it to be sort of like that just after golden hour sunset look and candlelit, and we really wanted them to feel like undirected, especially during their vows. We approached it like it was, it was their real ceremony moment for them, and that whole rest of the night too. We wanted them to feel like they were alone, like they had that chateau to themselves and they were alone. So yeah, I think all of it really came together. We actually played the music on set for them as well, so that they can kind of like feel everything. We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun shooting it. It was a really great assignment. I'm really thankful for that. You guys like gave me something that was sort of right up my alley, and yeah.
No, you absolutely nailed it, Jade. I don't know, you feel the same way I do, but
it
really did connect.
It was very, very touching, yeah.
And it was
really
so
enjoyed
genuine,
it.
and I think that's
yeah,
what...
it was.
Yeah, it's so genuine, I think, is a
Very.
great
Yeah.
word. Jade, the primary assignment you had was still
Yes.
work with a couple portraits, maybe pre-wedding or a little bit of that love. Talk about your assignment.
So, like you said rightly, I approached the assignment from pretty much what you would get from a wedding environment and also a pre-wedding environment. So essentially, we had three different shoots. We had an engagement shoot, we had a bridal session, and then we also had a couple session from a wedding. And I really tried to create the sort of environment that most wedding photographers will face, particularly with the challenges of time, lighting, and also the sort of conditions that you have with weather. And it just happened that when we were doing the shoot, we didn't have the best weather, we didn't have the best light, and neither do we have the best environment, which is usually what generally tends to happen when you're shooting weddings or shooting these engagement shoots. You got to be creative. You got to sort of come up with all sorts of ideas of how you can sort of create some masterful pieces. So that's literally or generally what we were faced with. So I had a couple from two different ethnic backgrounds because I thought, we're kind of in an age where we have different sort of mixes of different people sort of coming together. And I wanted to sort of demonstrate what we could do with the beautiful camera to create some really, really beautiful images with these couples as well in these settings. And then also in terms of the bridal portraits, we had a really beautiful bride model in a really beautiful house. We sort of positioned her in different places, created some really, really good poses with her. And I think the key thing in that particular one was also the kind of lighting we wanted to use, a lot of continuous lighting as well, because most of the times in bridal portraits, you don't have a lot of time to set up the lights the way you want to. And so just kind of having that setting was literally what we were trying to go for.
Well, do you mind if we share with everyone out there a little bit of the behind the scenes of a Jade
please.
shoot?
Let's go for it.
Let's roll the behind the scenes.
One of the things that is very important to me while photographing a wedding is the documentary aspect of the storytelling. I'm capturing moments that cannot be scripted. I'm capturing moments that rarely ever happen ever again.
And what I want you to do with your arms, right, that hand, just every so often if you just feel the need to just, yes.
When Nikon asked me to try out the Z8, I was first of all extremely ecstatic. Having come from shooting so many different Nikon cameras, the Z8 brings so many different bits and pieces from every single camera and puts it into this one very small body. So obviously, as an image maker, And particularly these days, you're bombarded with so much in terms of inspiration. Everywhere you're going out, you see images everywhere. You are reacting to the scenes that you are inspired by. So the technology that is packed inside the Z8 allows you as an image creator to focus purely on the art as opposed to fiddling too much on settings on the camera. The camera does so much for you that it even takes things to another level in terms of creativity. The main two things I look for in a camera are weight and speed of use. And I say weight in the sense that it's very important to me that I have something that I can just whip out to capture a particular scene at any time. The speed of use is really important to me because I don't want to have to think. I'm capturing very, very fast moments. I want a situation where I can just pick up a camera, take a shot, and boom. There are two main features that I am very, very much blown away by. The first one is focus. I've never worked with a camera that actually does the focus for you. I can just lift the camera up and it already knows what I want it to focus on. I love the fact that you can flip the screen up and put the camera out. I want to take a picture. I don't have to press the viewfinder all the time. I just tap the part of the frame I want in focus and it does all the work for you in terms of finding the focus in that space. One of the great things about the camera is its ability to pick up those essential parts in the scene that will sort of bring the story of the scene into the image. Most of the clients that I work with choose these places because they have some sort of connections to them. And I think sometimes creators sometimes miss the beauty of these connections. But if you can kind of capture the scene with a camera that is capable of capturing a whole array of light, and also being able to light those scenes in the way that you would like to light them as well, you can always create some really, really great stuff with them. My name is Jide Alakija. I'm the principal photographer of Alakija Studios, and I am a proud Nikon ambassador.
You know, Jide, you put so much heart and soul into this, and you can tell how you've connected with the couple. And thank you for sharing that BTS with us, because again, I think the world wants to see what goes on behind a lot of these shoots. And I know you have a great behind the scenes video that's posted as well, so people get to see that also. But I want to shift gears from the creative to the actual camera itself and the Z8. And I want to know what your first impressions were when you got the camera in hand.
You know, I came from a different camera.
Yeah, and I want to just delve into
yeah.
that just a little bit about, you moved into the Nikon system, and just really want to ask you why.
Well, it was an unexpected opportunity, and when we were asked to do that shoot for the 85-1.2, which fell in love with the Z9 completely, so that when we were given this, we were just like totally excited, obviously because of the size, first and foremost. So this little guy is easy to carry, like 2 or 3 bodies in one bag, and that's really helpful. It's a dream. This thing is a dream. The features on it are a dream. For us too, we're shooting, and for me especially, I'm not as tall, so I'm always shooting like this. So the screen is very helpful, the tilt, and I also do shoot low a lot. Also, I'm a creature of habit, to be honest with you. And we got comfortable with this really quickly, especially because I was able to customize the buttons. And plus the touch screen, the iMenu is very helpful. I was able to customize everything on the iMenu. So if I kind of like forgot where the buttons were, it was boom, iMenu, okay, you know, everything I needed right there. Another thing that we loved about the Z8, that's very helpful for us in very dark situations. So just with like, just one little boop, all the buttons light up, which is very helpful for us.
I love, you know, the engineers would love it's the whoop button.
Yeah, it's the whoop button. But no, it's something so small, it sounds small, but when you're in a situation like we are mostly, it's very it's insanely helpful. It's really important, and it's something that we're not used to. So yeah, it was pretty like major for us.
It's something that's amazing for you to bring up, because
Yeah.
a lot of photographers or videographers don't know that about the cameras, and that's inherent in the mirrorless cameras. So
Yeah.
backside illuminated buttons is what the technical term is, not the oop.
No,
but,
I'll call it the oop.
but
Oop,
whoop
there it
is
is.
okay. You can call whoop whatever you want, and but it's an amazing helpful feature.
Yeah, very.
I was thinking maybe you pass it over to G-Day.
Oh,
I know this is always the tough part, right? Giving it back, or
that was the hard part, giving it back.
but we know that they're going to be in both your camera bags. So
Right.
you want to pass that over to G-Day? Let's talk a little bit about your first
You're
impressions,
welcome.
G-Day. That's okay. You can fight over it. This is it's always fun for a Nikon person to see you fight over the Nikon and the Z8. I mean, I'd be fighting over it too. But I do get that back at the end. Just keep that in mind.
Oh, yeah?
Talk about your first impressions in hand. I know you talked a little bit about it in the BTS, or the
Yeah.
behind the scenes.
Yeah. Well, first impressions is it's very, very light, fits in your hand so easily. And one thing I think really stands out for me is the fact that, you touched on quite a few things. The customization of different buttons and things like that is a huge game changer, at least whenever I'm shooting. And the reason for that is I spend a lot of my time doing this and walking around with a camera this close to my eye. And I think the last thing you want to do when you're photographing a moment is to pull the camera down and get your focus off from what you're actually looking at and having to change menus and change settings. You can do everything all there because you have everything all customized. And then again, another thing that Sharrone touched on was the ability to have almost like a second eye by flipping this screen in all sorts of angles. So it's not just pulling it out or flipping it this way. You can flip it this way if you're doing vertical shoots from the ground. I'm not getting any younger, so right now whenever I'm doing sort of low ground shots, it makes a difference when you can actually flip the screen just like this. And then also, I think this is something that I guess is more unique to a street shooter and sort of should I say a moment grabber. The mere fact that things are happening so quickly, sometimes you don't even have the time to compose, to focus. I almost feel like this camera has its own brain. So you just click and it just it knows what you're trying to find. It looks for subjects and things like that. So there are times when, say, I'm photographing a wedding on the dance floor and there's a lot of things happening and I'm trying to make a really, really cool composition. And one of the hardest things I used to have that resulted in me taking like 1,000 photos, like spraying and shooting and sort of going through the task of trying to find the best one, was having to focus on a subject at the same time getting the composition right while they're moving at 20 miles an hour and stuff like that, is the mere fact that I can just flip the screen, do that, and then just tap the subject with the composition and everything is all tech sharp. And what I mean by tap the subject, the camera actually goes through the job of actually saying, oh, that's the subject you want? Okay, I'll go to his eyes and actually make sure that the eyes are actually in focus. So it's a really, really handy feature to have.
I just love a guy that says I'm getting old, and he's about approaching 25, and I'm 60. So when you want to
you
get
give
to
me so many
50, we can talk
compliments,
about
man. I
old,
need-
brother. Now this may not apply to you as much, Sharrone, but from a business standpoint, you're running a business here, right? We can talk creative all day long. How important is it to you that the form factor is such that the batteries from your Z7 II or 6 II will work in the camera, CF Express as well as SD, the card slot for CF. How does that help you as a photographer?
I think it's amazing the fact that, I think this is one of the cool things that's unique about Nikon, is the fact that everything is so interchangeable from previous versions or previous cameras. The fact that I can still use my older batteries, like you say, use older cards, lenses as well with adapters, and everything just works so seamlessly. I still have a lot of stuff that I've been using from my D780, D750 as well, and they all work as well with this, if not better. I think one of the great things as well is the battery life as well. on an older camera, it didn't last as long. On this camera, it lasts even longer. Yeah. So that's pretty amazing.
Those are all incredible. And to me, the versatility, and I know you have both experienced the Z9, as you mentioned, Sharrone, to be able to size down and have options. You know, if I want a battery pack for the Z8, I can get a battery pack. I want to keep that form factor down. You mentioned street shooting. That's so important to have a more discreet camera in a smaller package. And having good battery life from a single battery is great, but as a wildlife photographer as well, having extra batteries is even more amazing, you know, so you're not changing as much and you're not missing moments, because you guys keep talking about how precious moments are. Yeah. They are in any bit of photography, right? Our pictures are made up of millions of moments. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I find that that's just so important. I'll take the camera back now. You're sure. Thank you very much. It's mine. I want to come back to you, Sharrone, and I really want to start to dig into video a little bit more. Now, how does Sharrone work video? Talk a little bit about your crew. Talk a little bit more about the behind the scenes of what happens on your shoot.
For us personally, there are some things on this camera we weren't used to. I'm going to name the first one is the insane autofocus, especially in the environments that we like to shoot in. We're in dark situations a lot, and we're in like shadowy situations a lot. And one of the things that actually pointed out, like there was a scene where the bride, she was sitting on a bar and they were literally like, they were in candlelight and we just had one source of light on them. And this thing was still catching her eyeball. And that's something that, it's crazy, it's insane. It's we were just, all of us were blown away with the autofocus. So, and then the other thing that it has that we're not used to also is, so it'll catch like on her eyeball, but it actually detects like the next face over. So it has like an arrow and it asks you, hey, do you want to go to that next face? That's major, that's a major feature. That's an amazing feature to have. The peaking on this is really great. I use a lot of peaking when I shoot.
Tell people, like, focus peaking, I use it in still photography a ton, and that's where you get the viewfinder. When you're looking through the viewfinder, everything lights up that's sharp.
From where I come from, the peaking was great, but it affected the entire image that I was seeing on the screen. So I kind of had to trust that my settings were okay. So I would have to stop recording and make sure that
becomes even more important.
Yeah, exactly. So here, the peaking, it's just outlining what's in focus, and the rest of the image that you're looking at on the screen is not affected. So that's a major thing. The other nice thing too is that like I can actually shoot. I can record video while the histogram is still on the screen, and that's a pretty big deal.
I know there's a million things we probably can go through.
I can say this. I need to say this out loud. I know that a lot of concerns for people that are coming from other systems, like my peers, is the fact that on Nikon the lens is reversed. It's not this, what we're used to.
In the way of how it rotates for focus.
And you're able to in camera you can
custom settings will allow you to reverse that the way you want it. I mean, I can't even begin to count the amount of custom settings. So I think we all realize that you can make this camera yours, right? Whatever it is, it's almost like you've got this shell that you can turn into anything you want with the quality of what you're looking for. So the customizability alone, when you talk about the display, there's a whole bunch of display options,
Everything
a ton of different display options, a ton of different shooting options, focus options. You can bring boxes in, big boxes, small boxes. You can create your own custom size boxes now.
That's a big thing too.
Yeah, and so for me that's big in my world. I can't imagine.
For the autofocus, you can actually customize the size of the
box, right? Yeah. I do a lot of vertical strands instead of wide horizontal boxes.
Meaning you can actually physically customize it yourself. It's not just the camera options.
Yep, you just a couple of switches and moves, and it's really easy to do, and then it's set that way.
Yeah.
And then you can recall those, and one of the things I use, and maybe this works more for you today and still, but I customize custom setting buttons to activate different focus modes. So if I do customize a box, I hit a button here. If I do set to a different mode like dynamic, this back button where most people use AF1, I don't. Some people don't. I use that to now bring back dynamic autofocus, or I leave the system alone just through the shutter. So, I mean, there's so much you can do, and we can talk for hours about that, and I definitely beg people to go look at the pages and see, you know, what the camera's capable of. But you bring up something big in the way of autofocus. Today, talk about the focus modes you were using, and not just, I mean, do you just use the eye detect, or, because I don't know what else you may use with portraits.
No, of course,
but
it's a good point. I use the 3D focus with the eye detect as well. And I think that's, like I said, purely because of the fact that I want the cameras to do most of the work. When I must admit, when I first heard about that system, I was a bit confused. I thought, how did the camera kind of figure out, you know, what I want focused on and how to sort of keep focused on that thing? And it does a really, really good job in, once you have selected what you're looking for, or if anything, intuitively figure out the things that you actually want to focus and sticking to those things. So I generally keep onto those. When you're photographing a wedding, or you're photographing a street scene or anything like that, your main subject is a person most of the time. There's no sort of variation like I'm photographing a building or photographing this particular object. And so therefore, keeping to, say, the 3D focus actually does sort of do all the work that I need it to do. Sometimes when I am photographing, say, stills like an object, maybe a bit of detail, just sort of switching to the traditional, you know, focus box in the middle, it also does work, because obviously your subject isn't moving. But I don't have, you know, not like, I guess, in video where you're switching between focus modes from one thing to the other. Yeah. One thing I will do say though is when, actually maybe I am shifting into something else here, but it does sort of involves the sort of use of focus and things like that, is the sort of pre-release capture. I think that's pretty awesome. Sort of having a composition set because you anticipate a moment's going to be happening, or is going to happen. Having, you know, pressing halfway through the trigger, and knowing the camera is actually capturing these moments. And then when you see the moment, then you just capture that moment and you think, oh, did I get it? You don't have to think about that. You know it's already been captured. So that is pretty handy.
It's pretty important, and for those of you out there that don't know this, 3D tracking is you set the focus point on the subject, and then as long as your finger's on the shutter, it'll move around the frame with the subject, and that's what 3D tracking is all about. And like you say, why are there other modes in the camera? Because you need them. Yeah. You know, to answer your question about how it's all doing this, I revert back to our friend Jerry Guionis, who calls it all sorcery. It's magic, and you know, it's years of engineering.
It's interesting you say that. As the cameras get better, I'm constantly finding very little need for the level of post-production that I typically have had to sort of do on my photography. In regards to the images that come out from the camera, both JPEG and RAW, I have to admit that I'm always blown away by the level of quality. I think the first time I actually put the, this is an on-process photo, on my screen, I actually started asking questions like, what do I need to do? I feel like I need to do something to this image, but I can't seem to find what it is because everything is just perfectly captured the way I want to. And also the colors are so rich. The dynamic range is second to none, especially in my own case where a lot of my subjects tend to be of sort of darker complexion. And when you have, say, a mixed couple, so you have someone who's really dark and someone who's really light, you're sometimes challenged by the fact that, are we going to get enough detail from someone who's wearing, say, who's really dark wearing a really bright dress? And it's really amazing when you can see that because there's so much you can do with the images in that regard. So it just really gives you so much more confidence in the kind of stuff you can create for, say, your clients or for your work that you're trying to showcase. A lot of the times when you do see a lot of imagery that come out from different things, there's a lot of work that's been put into them. And having a system that really takes half the work out just means you can create a lot more images. So that's one of the great things I think I really love about this camera is that the quality of the imagery is definitely second to none.
I want to shift gears back to you, Sharrone. now you've produced this video, and you and your team, you're looking at the quality of the files, or what is it that you're seeing, and try to describe that to everybody out there.
I don't understand the science behind it, so I
Sorcery.
don't. Yeah, it's sorcery. Well, first of all, I want to say that it's amazing. I've never had the opportunity to shoot internal ProRes, and so that's a big deal. And it's shooting 10-bit color.
Right to the card.
Right to the card.
No extra devices.
And I don't have to be in log. I don't like shooting in log, so that's a major deal. And you're talking about saving time in post-production. We shot on the flat profile without even tweaking. We didn't touch anything. We didn't tweak anything.
You keep looking at the camera, so
I
maybe
love
it's better in your
it.
hands.
I want it. I just. I really do love it. Can I use the word sexy? It's sexy.
You can say sexy. I don't think
It's
those are the words that
sexy.
you can't use on TV.
It's
so.
sexy though, isn't it?
It is.
All right,
is
so
a sexy
back to the
camera.
quality.
So especially with my look, I in post production, I put my look on it. It's a distinct look. So I don't know, however you want to describe it. Moody look. The blacks are like, thick, and with the footage that came out of this thing, the skin looks like butter, like silk. I don't know how how else to explain it.
That is true, yeah.
I don't understand why, but I just know it is. I see it. I see it.
The good news is there are a lot of engineers that do.
Yeah, thank
and that's
you.
all that matters
Thank
to
you,
me.
engineers.
Because between the press of the shutter and the actual capture of the images and video, I'm not at all concerned what's going on in between, because I'm more concerned with what's going on out there.
If you watch, I don't even have to say closely, but if you watch this video that we did for this, the footage coming out of this is amazing. Just on my timelines, the H22, the ProRes H22, I'm not having issues with it, slowing me down in post.
We've had this conversation. I've heard you say this. You're not just doing one wedding, right?
No.
You're doing production after production, wedding after wedding. Time is always a factor. Time is money, right?
In
And
post-production,
so what you
yeah.
say is, it just goes beyond the time factor. It's your business.
Speaking of time, I can point this out. So when you're shooting in ProRes RAW, it captures the exact same file in camera. It captures it in 1080 also. So it's the same file number in 1080. So you don't even have to spend time creating proxies, which is a lot of time in post for us. So it already has the 1080 footage in here for you when you're pulling it all in. Yeah,
Time
it's
is
a
money.
big,
Time is business.
It's kind of wild. That's nice.
I find this fascinating. I feel like I want to talk to you guys for
you
another
wanna
2
touch it?
hours. All right, don't get comfortable today, okay? All right? I know where you live.
Oh, it's so nice. It feels so good.
I can't thank you guys enough for sharing some insight. Again, hours of this conversation I could enjoy, because I'm not a video person, but I'm eating up a lot of what you're saying in video. And again, I'm more of a clips person. And Jade, I know your work. We've worked together for many years now. And it's nothing short of spectacular. So thank you for making us cry.
Thank you for letting me.
Yeah.
Thank you for the beautiful
that was
connection
fun.
in your work, and
thanks.
and thank you for being here and sharing with everybody. We really appreciate
This
you.
is great.
Thank you for having me.
Those of you guys tuning in, we hope you're as excited as we are about the Z8 and delve into some of the things that these guys have talked about. Certainly, you can check out our website and social channels for more great information on the Z8. Sharrone has a great BTS that's out there as well, so check that out. And we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you soon.
Ready, action.